All right, again, so welcome to Virtual Safety Side 2021. You're in the elective, the experience of preparing Rangers to work the Burning Man Multiverse in 2020. We have about 28 minutes. If you have a comment or question, feel free to drop that into the chat box at any time or type hand into the chat box so we can start a queue and we'll call on you accordingly. This is again about virtual rangering and specifically about our team, which is called VEST, which stands for Virtual Event Support Teams, a support services group to virtual regional burns and the actual virtual Burning Man event. So we'll be going through how did we get here, a little bit of background and overview on our team, some stats. Again, our Multiverse Ranger panel will share out about the intricacies about preparing to support the virtual regional burn, as well as Burning Man 2020, the Multiverse. Again, feel free to drop your questions and comments throughout this presentation. And this is not over. Regionals are still going virtual. There's going to continue to be events to support. If you're interested in joining the Multiverse Ranger team or VEST, Virtual Event Support Teams, or have any questions, please reach out to us directly. We're in the Safety Side Discord, or you can email me or multiverserangers.org. Diver Dave.
Cool. And if you could click on it, looks like there's there may be some text. No, let's go back one. I guess it's just not showing up. Virtual training for Burning Man staff and for Rangers in particular is not a new thing. It's actually been going on since 2007 here. It started when Burning Man became aware of a group calling themselves Rangers in Second Life, running around in virtual Humvee vehicles wearing tactical gear and saying, this isn't right. Michael, Danger Ranger, the founder of Rangers, and Dusty, Michael on the right, came in and started Ranger training way back in 2007. And we need to go and appreciate that Ranger training's been going on since 2007 with an intact virtual Ranger team in Burn 2 in Second Life since then, with very, very experienced volunteer trainers. All the things that happened virtually back there in the day, such as even crossing the line, are present. And you would recognize Ranger training in Second Life with Burn 2 Rangers. There's shift command training, there are 007 processes, there's the culture of 10 principles, all of it's there. And we were very lucky to be able to go and build on a lot of those understandings of how to Ranger in a virtual space when we started putting together 2020 training for Rangers. I would have to say we were successful because of all those learnings and literally the years spent. 2020 was my 28th virtual event that I Rangered.
Right. So we're back in the presentation. So this slide, I think for me, really summarizes what we did in 2020. So it seemed like a bunch of us just found each other. So I'm a BlackRock and Africa Burn Ranger, but I'm also the lead for the Temple Guardians in Black Rock City. And around June, I found Tranquility and Geo and a bunch of other people who and we started these the multiverse support services for the online events for 2020, the multiverse, and it eventually became the multiverse. But we actually got together shortly before they announced all of those verses, and we really just found each other, and we got together and started working together as one team, even more so than we would on Playa in Black Rock City. So it was a collection of Temple Guardians, Rangers, Multiverse Rangers, and Playa Info volunteers, as well as harm reduction. And those four groups were the only 4 groups that were associated with the Burning Man volunteer groups that kind of stepped up and said, "Hey, this is something that we need to support from the same perspective as we would normally on Playa." And I love this slide because this is a snapshot of one of the verses in Topia, and it kind of shows a lot of things. It shows all of us working together, Guardians, Rangers, Playa Info. It shows a little bit on each of these signs. You'll see that you can actually click through, and we'll talk about the different technologies that we had available. But on one slide here, we show that there's a lot of different ways that you can reach us. It also shows a little bit of the kind of reminiscing that we were able to do. You know, here's the containers. This looks very, very much like our beloved B08 container on Playa for Temple Guardians. And then you see, if you're familiar with Black Rock City, you'll know these little coolers on the tables. It really had and the burn barrel had a feel for kind of reminiscing what it was like on Playa. And the final thing on this slide is that we really all just jumped in and started contributing. And even the creation of this little site on this platform, it was an opportunity for one of our volunteers to roll up his sleeves and create this as a little art project in service of our project. So I love this slide as a summary of what we did. So we just showed up and we came together. And for the different groups, we had kind of different relationships with our like home group in Burning Man, where for us as Temple Guardians, it was the event. So the Temple Guardians in the multiverse were the same group of Temple Guardians in Black Rock City. Similar with Playa Info, but the Multiverse Rangers were like a regional ranger team. It wasn't the Black Rock Rangers. It was the Multiverse Rangers, which is very, very consciously separate from the Black Rock Rangers. And we were as a support services group, we were separate from the org, which unfortunately, what that means is we didn't have the same liability coverage. So, we had to make sure that although many of our volunteers came from Black Rock City teams, when they jumped into working with this effort, they didn't have the same kind of coverage, liability coverage. So we had to make sure that was clear for them. But it was a wonderful opportunity for us to come together, work as a joint team in a way that we didn't before on Playa, as well as we found in all of our teams, we found new leaders, coming forward that, was amazing to see, and also, helped us, I know for the Temple Guardians, we have a much stronger leadership team going back to Playa than we would otherwise because of this event. And let me move that on to the next one.
And I'm back up and running unless you want to keep sharing.
I'm happy to keep sharing if you just tell me when to switch the slide.
Okay. So last year, the Multiverse 2020, we were the Multiverse Support Services team. We operated under a Joint Operations Command Center under CACI, shift leads. Each of the teams had their own leads: Temple Guardians under their Temple Support, Harm Reduction under the Harm Reduction lead, Playa Info under their lead, and then Rangers under our own shift command. We also had a training lead, which was Diver Dave, a tech lead who was also very experienced in Discord, which is what we use for our comms. We had operations manager, also Diver Dave, and we also had subject matter experts, ranger liaisons to all of the platforms. These liaisons were also responsible for communicating with the community managers when they were in place, which also happened to be the creators last year as time was really, really tight. So this year, 2021, next slide, we have converted to a model where we're all going to be under a joint operations team under CACI, Ranger Shift Command. And the temple guardians will still have their temple support lead, but our operations again will be run under one headquarters. And this will allow us for allow better communications between the teams. There were some lessons learned that we'll talk about a little bit later. And we have started using this model during the last couple of virtual regional burns. Next slide. So 2021, what we do and how we can help if you and your event are thinking about going virtual or doing some type of hybrid in real life plus virtual type event. We have a consolidated staff now and a joint operations center with Burning Man official regional events. We can help staff your virtual event. Examples from last year are Australia's Burning Seed Tipping Point, as well as London's DCOM. The cool thing that was mentioned in some of the conversations yesterday at the roundtable was the problem about trying to staff graveyard shifts, which is always challenging. And because this is available globally, guess what? No one has to staff a graveyard shift again because everybody's time zone's different. Snaps to that. So that was really valuable during Australia's Burning Seed because it was our daytime, their nighttime, no problem there. We can also serve as consultant only for tech and operations and help you get that set up best practices for virtual events, help build your content, build the tech, and keep you connected to Burning Man's regional events team. Next slide. So you guys are already 5 steps ahead because you're already in Discord and using it, but we also had other ways for participants or other theme camps, the platforms themselves, Burning Man staff, anyone else to contact us and get support. You could contact us through our Zoom room link and directly drop into Zoom and have a face-to-face. You could submit a form and via an email, you could, and receive an email back. You could drop into our chat, which is connected to our Discord and have immediate service there. You could complete an incident form and we would respond via whichever method you indicate was the best. And I'm gonna punt this over to Diver Dave.
Thanks. And so that's part of the general tech that we have, and we rely on Discord as a platform where we're pushing information into Discord out there, whether it's a live chat from a web page and platforms having that live chat, whether it's a form submittal where somebody wants to get in touch with one of the departments or a ranger. And Temple Guardians had this, Playa Info has this, Rangers have this as well. These wind up going into Google Sheets at the end of the day. And if you're not on a collaborative tool like Google or online Office 365, this is what saves your day working and preparing people to be able to go and work with common tools out there. And as things change, being able to go and access documents that change very, very quickly out there. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we had many Zoom rooms. Playa Info had a Zoom room that was kind of the front porch. We had the notion of a sanctuary with Zoom breakout rooms that people could go to. And the goal was to have private one-on-one conversations. And Temple Guardians had a Zoom room with breakout rooms as well. And that's kind of the external systems that participants could go and see out there. And then we had internal systems with incident logs, shift logs, internal feedback forums. Shift leads had their own Zoom room that they could sit in. And all of this requires training. So, for a few people, this is the first time that they'd ever interacted with these systems. So we really wanted to go and include that piece in the training. But we had up to 6+ hours worth of training. And what we found is a lot of people wanted to take all the trainings out there, and they did. Trainings should be in blocks maximum of about 3 hours each, include breaks, leave room for discussion and team building, leave time to practice and do scenarios together. You really should train your shift command first, and they can help scale out with questions, but that gets your operational processes down. And then practicing our IMS processes across all teams is a big lesson learned. Getting some groups that are not used to working, doing field work in pairs, even though they're in a virtual environment, is really important. Understanding what CACI does across all teams was very important. Because we had so much information out there, we built a field guide, which we highly recommend. And we trained to the field guide. Because of this great amount of information, people were going back to the field guide to understand how to go and we'll talk about that in just a second. Our staff that were rangering all consisted of experienced rangers. We didn't, with the exception of 1 or 2 exceptions, mint brand new rangers out there. And one of the big learnings out there that we are training to in the future is that everyone is a green dot of some kind if they're interacting with participants, with each other, and with platforms. So let's go on to 13. Building out the training specifically for rangers, we started with reminding people what rangering was all about. And the reason for that is that online and in gaming experiences, and many people came to this thinking this was a gaming experience they'd participate in their role. There is a role called community manager you typically have out there. They're the people with their thumbs on the big red button to bounce people out, and rangers specifically are not community managers. We did a lot of cultural level setting as part of the training, which we have, how to give feedback, who we are, what we do, what we don't do in this environment, how all the staff works together. How to navigate virtual platforms is really important. We've had 6 different virtual platforms. How to get to a private one-on-one conversation. What tools are available in a platform? Go back to that field guide if you forget anything, because it's all written up in there. But pulling back from that, the questions you get, which are where are the Portos questions, are how do you move in here? How do I find my friends? Are the big questions that you get in virtual meetings, and getting people to understand how to go and answer that depending on the platform is important. We talked about the rangering skills of Flame and how to go about finding out using the tools in the different platforms. We talked about the role of harm reduction. We talked about green dot training. Must reports are slightly different than what you might expect because there's cyberbullying, and there's also attacks that can happen on platforms as well, denial of service attacks, trying to shut everything down that fall into must reports. So we had an expanded must reports role, and we had the notion of escalation. We also had the notion that we can't necessarily do everything. So what do you do if somebody comes in with suicidal ideations and they're located in Turkey, for example? Operational processes were fairly complete. If you've been a regional ranger or a BlackRock ranger, you wouldn't be surprised by those processes. We tried to use the same terminology, language, a lot of the same things. There's an incident report process you'd use as well. Shift signups, and then we always talk about all the fun stuff in the swag, like we have a Multiverse Ranger t-shirt on here. Thanks, next slide. We train shift command as well. We have to have an operations and a safety plan with must reports procedures, a 007 process, because you can't really bounce people fully off a platform. How to use logs and track escalation procedures, all the operational procedures, how to go and use the tech tools, how to go and take people through the field guide, and then we always talk again about fun stuff, but train your shift command first out there, and they'll give you feedback. The Ranger Field Guide has a guide to all the platforms, how to get to a private conversation, getting started useful links like how to do a shift sign up, how to get trained, how to use all the communications tools, where to get training on the communications tools, how to do a must report, The partner groups that are there, how to get in touch with people in Temple Guardians, Playa Info, Who's Who, reading list, how to be a better ranger, and the rights of volunteers. It was a fairly complete field guide. Jared likes to think that the Temple Guardians field guide was better. So we're gonna have to have, in the future, have a field guide shootout. Field guides are really important out there using Google Docs, and they're a live document that you update and change.
I look forward to that shootout.
So why should you do all this? Does anybody here feel like I just said a whole bunch of complicated gobbledygook at you? It's okay to raise your hand. It's a bunch of complicated stuff. It's a whole bunch of complicated training. Why go virtual with an event if it may look complicated? The answer is that we get to connect. We get to see our friends. We actually get to work together. The reality is that this is real rangering. We have had situations with must reports where we have had someone contact theme camp with suicidal ideations. They wound up going over to Temple Guardians because of an offering. They wound up with a harm reduction volunteer. They wound up with a ranger, and they were helped. And none of that should surprise you. You may have heard stories of people having suicidal ideations at a regional event too, and the team handled it. New leaders also emerge from virtual events. There are people that don't want to do virtual events and people that do want to do virtual events, and those people gravitate to leadership positions out there. This is a great way to go and keep all of your staff trained up, working together, and using their skills. And it's also a great way to create. We've had, behind me is Virtual Burning Man HQ. We've had people that are 3D artists within Rangers come in. Crow built Tokyo. He was a 3D artist. So there's a lot of creativity involved. So these are all great reasons to do virtual events. And we're here to help consultatively all the way to supporting you with augmenting staff. We can help you out with this team. Any questions?
I did not see even one question appear in the chat. So this may be a lot of information. I'm not sure.
Well, let's just reiterate that we're going to be going down again for 2021. The virtual event will be providing these functions for Rangers, Playa Info, Temple Guardians, harm reduction as green dots. And if you'd like to come play with us, it's a lot of fun. So you can go and reach out to Tranquility at burningman.org, info at multiverserangers.org.
Safety and ivory.
Safety and ivory. Go.
You mentioned service interruptions. Do you guys have ways to spot like cyber attacks and stuff like that? Is that kind of in that vein of what you were talking about?
Typically, we're in direct contact with the technical production teams as well as the community managers of the platforms, and we have back channels, so we hear about it that way. But you can also see it too. You know, somebody goes and does a cyber attack, it will say in Second Life or on some of the other platforms like the virtual platforms, everything kind of slows down and bogs down. It gets real slideshowy.
And then you have protocols in place to be able to react and escalate and do things and follow up with that?
Yeah, agreements like, hey, we're gonna reboot a server, or we're going to, and understanding who might be doing this. It gets complex out there, and we talk about it with Shift Command typically, where it gets escalated to. But the big thing is communication with tech teams and with community management within the platform.
And then on that, do you also have a working relationship on a more microscopic scale for maybe local law enforcement as well, depending on the incident, obviously? But do you also have whatever relationships you need to have to be able to reach out to that kind of thing?
That's super hard since it's global. The best thing that we have is we've got a list of all the police departments around the world that we can go and call out there. And we don't hesitate if it's in a domain to reach out for support services, you know, of some kind, welfare check or something like that. Any list of virtual events planned for this year? Tranquility. Virtual Del Fuego.
The one that's upcoming is Memorial Day weekend, which is the end of May. That's Virtual Del Fuego. I dropped the link for that, which has more information and a sign up. If you go to Burning Man's regional page, which I'm pulling up right now, they do have their official events posted. Although it's their website's a little bit funky.
So we're a minute past our time, and I know you guys like to stay on chat schedule, so we just want to express thanks and gratitude, and we hope you come virtually, provide virtual event support services with us. We'd love to have you come